Hi, Year 7. We are going to have a look at the topic of light now. So we're going to start to think about today the ways in which light rays travel. We'll do a little bit of comparison to sound, and then we'll do a look at the different types of materials that allow light to pass through. And I've also attached to your work today an optional experiment that you can give a go should you choose to as well. So, those are our objectives today and the things that we're going to have a look at. So let's make a start. So the first important thing to know is that light is a form of energy, and we need light to be able to actually see things. If you was to go in your room, turn the light off, shut the blinds and the curtains, you wouldn't be able to see anything because your eyes are only able to detect light. We don't have light beams coming out of our eyes, otherwise we wouldn't need bulbs in our rooms. So without light, we cannot see anything at all. Now, a couple of facts about light to start us off with. So light can only travel in a straight line. We're going to have a look at that today. Light travels at 300,000 kilometers per second, which is significantly faster than sound because sound travels only at 340 meters per second. This is about 1,000,000 times faster. Now, when we looked at sound, we did a lesson on the speed of sound, and sound travels at different speeds through different objects. So through air, the sound is not very fast. Through solids, sound travels much faster. And that's because sound is dependent on particles moving and bumping against one another. Light travels in the form of waves, so it doesn't actually need any particles to be able to move. And that's important because that is why, for example, the light from the sun is able to make it to us, because from the sun to the earth there is nothing but empty space. And that doesn't matter because the light still manages to make it to us here on Earth. So light can travel through a vacuum. A vacuum is just empty space. So a new word for you here is the word luminous, and it's not to be confused with the word illuminous or neon objects. Luminous means a object that creates its own light. So for example, a bulb or the sun or even fire that generates light as well. Anything else that doesn't generate its own light is called a non-luminous source, and the only way we can see the non-luminous thing is through light bouncing off of that into our eyes. So luminous sources is anything that makes its own light. So I gave you a couple of examples a moment ago of luminous sources. So you've got the sun, you've got anything that's got a bulb in it, so lamps, torches, lights, and things like fire that generate their own light source. So looking at this picture, think about how the light is travelling. You can almost see the sort of rays of light that are coming down here. I'm sure you've seen it on cloudy days as well. You can almost see the beams of light appearing, or perhaps when you're at shows and things, and you can, when they fill the theatre with smoke, and you can see the light beams piercing through there. Light travels in straight lines. It doesn't bend round corners. There is a way it can bend, and we'll come to that in a few lessons' time, but the important thing to remember here is it travels in straight lines. If it didn't travel in straight lines, we'd never have any shadows. And of course, shadows are important. So what we need to do is have a look at how we draw these in ray diagrams to show how we see things. So light travels in straight lines. So let's have a look here. So you can see on this diagram some images or lines have been drawn on. So the TV itself is a luminous source. So that means that the light travels directly from the TV screen to the eye. Now obviously your lines will be much straighter because you'll be using a ruler rather than drawing on a screen with a pen. But you would then also add an arrow to show the direction of the light, and it always goes from the luminous source to the eye. Now objects like the popcorn, for example, doesn't generate its own light. It has to have light reflecting off of it. So the light has to come from somewhere. So it comes from a light source and it reflects back into the eye. Notice that there was no break in my line. So down here, those two lines touch each other, and the arrow will go from the light source to the object, from the object back to the eye again. Similarly with the dog biscuits, the dog can see in the same way because it reflects into the dog's eye. So let's have a look at another example. Here's a test tube, scientist and a lamp. So importantly, you would need to make sure that light goes from the lamp. See if I can actually use a ruler. Oh, I can. And then from the test tube to the eye. And it's important that there aren't any breaks in the line, which is hard to do on a screen. And popping in your arrows to show the direction that the light is going. So these are your key points to note down here, that when you are doing your diagrams, they need to be drawn with straight lines. There needs to be no breaks in the lines, and the arrows should always point from the light towards the object, from the object towards the eye. Remember, we do not have light beams coming out of our eyes. So this is a task that you can do later. I've put the PowerPoint onto Teams for you. You can then draw or print out this image, draw it for yourself, draw your own image and practice drawing on your rays to show how Bob over here can see the different things in the room. And you've got different luminous sources available there. There are 3 luminous sources in that picture. Hopefully you can name all 3 of those luminous sources. So the last little bit to know, I talked about this at the beginning, about different objects allowing different amounts of light through. Shadows, remember, are created when an object doesn't let any light through it. So these objects are called opaque objects. No light is able to get through these objects. The other 2 words that we need to know are transparent and translucent. Transparent objects do allow some light to go through them. Well, most of the light to go through them. They only absorb some light. So we can see through transparent things like the glass in your windows, for example, or through actual glasses. Water is another transparent object, but when you get into really, really deep water, you can't then see because most of the water is being absorbed, so that makes it quite dark. Lastly, we've got the word translucent. Translucent, you can only see a little bit of light through it, and the light that is passing through it is scattered, so you cannot see anything very clearly. So think about looking through the perspex or frosted glass. Okay, that's it for today.